We'll get started. Are you ready, Pastor? All right. My story is from birth to college. I couldn't get my whole life. The second part of my life is so amazing. I thought the first part was cool, but we're only going to do the first part today. So, my family was from Madrid, Spain. My father's was from Sicily, Italy. So somehow, somewhere along the line, they got together. And my mother was in Adrian, Michigan Reform School from the time she was 16 until she was 21. And I verified everything. I tried to find out why she was there, but you can't find those things out. So, anyway, somewhere along the line, she married my father, and they had a little boy. He was about 11 months older than myself, and then I came into the picture. And everything was cool to begin with. I didn't know any different. Then, when I was about 4 years old, my mother went to work nights as a barmaid. My dad was a professional house painter in the daytime. So she started bringing the boyfriends over, and Dad didn't know. My brother and I were so close. We'd hide, after so long, found a place. How many remember the burlap or the oil tablecloths? Always had a special smell, But my mother's boyfriends would put me on their lap, and eventually I was raped twice at 4. And back then, some of the closets had just drapes instead of doors. Remember that? And so this closet had these drapes, and I always knew. It happened to me twice, and so when the boys would start to come over, my brother and I would get under the kitchen table where the oilcloth was, and I could still smell it. Remember how you used to smell it? Mm-hmm. Yeah, had a distinct smell to it. Anyway, we were under there, and we had dirt floors, but some in the kitchen were rotted wood. And next to the sink, they had this game they would play. 3 boyfriends she had at one time, but they'd back up against the sink, and right there was no rotted wood. And it was a game for another one to put knives, throw knives, see how close you could get to their feet. Well, of course, there was drinking going on too, and my brother and I were just horrified at the whole thing. And we knew one of these times something was going to happen. And it sure did. The guy threw the knife, hit the guy right in the heart. They called the ambulance. Blood was all over the floor. I can still see it. But the sound of the ambulance, you still get flashbacks. Even as an adult, we get flashbacks. And when I hear an ambulance, I get, I'm so glad I know Jesus, But then you always pray whoever is in that ambulance will, if they don't know Jesus, that they will come to know him. So word, I guess, must have gotten to my dad because he said he couldn't have me living like that anymore, and word had it that I was going to be given away. And I mean, it was immediate. So we lived down in the basement of this house on the hill. And do you remember the houses that had the lattice work? There's still some around Lima. The front porch. So my brother says, I'll take care of this. We'll remove the lattice and we'll crawl in. And then we can see that yellow car when it comes up the hill. So we barely got ourselves under that porch. We could see that yellow car coming up the hill. It was a yellow Cadillac. We didn't know difference. We knew our colors. So there it came. They never find us. They wouldn't think they'll look for kids under the porch. Well, how many remember what we used to call a pinafore? Remember that? You can pass it around. I had a little white pinafore on. And all of a sudden, I felt somebody tugging at my leg. And he pulled me out, and it was the guy in the yellow Cadillac. The problem was, when we hid under the porch, we didn't remember to put the lattice work back. Very easily spotted. So, my mother had packed, now a lot of you have seen this in cartoons, but they pack a suitcase and they tie, I think it was 3 Stooges to that. It's like a paper suitcase actually. Stuffed the clothes in and she tied it together with a rope. And I mean, I had no choice. So he carried me down to the car and he said, now smile and wave goodbye. I waited for my brother and my mother to come with me. They didn't. We were headed for a 4-hour drive. I cried and cried. And finally, Cal was his name, said, honey, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. So I finally fell asleep. My nose was snotty from crying, and I was mud. I was a mess. So finally, we got about a block from where we were going, and he says, you can wake up. We're almost there. I woke up. There was a servant on each side. A maid came out and got me. I was scared to death. Took me in, cleaned me up, and finally I wasn't hungry. It was too much, you know. So they cleaned me up. Must have had a little job to do. I don't know when I had a bath. But, and they took me in this bedroom, funniest bed I ever saw. The mattress was about this high. Well, later, of course, we know it was a feather bed, you know. And it had some crazy thing over the top of it. And she put me in there, covered me up. And those covers were literally shaking. I was scared to death. Scared to death. Finally, it wasn't 3 minutes, and the maid, she got me together. It wasn't 3 minutes, and this little elderly lady came in, soft bun and big diamond studs in her ears. And she pulled an old wooden rocking chair over to the bed, and she said, put her hand out on my arm, and she said, you don't have to be afraid. And I was so shaken. So she said, would you like me to sing to you? I said, yeah, that would be nice. So she sang, Jesus Loves Me, which is still my favorite song, and that's why it's my favorite song. But she sang it to me until I went to sleep. The next morning, I went down for breakfast, and I heard this funny sound. So when I got done eating, I peeked around the corner in the dining room. There was this young lady. What is she doing? She was sitting up making music on the keys. So I thought, never saw one of those. Well, then they saw me peeking around the corner, and the lady of the house, Mrs. Slater, introduced me that was her daughter. She was in her 20s, and they had adopted her as a baby. So I thought, boy, that's cool. So when she left to go home, I got over to the piano, and I was so tiny, you know. I fit. Well, the uprights are about like that, I think. And I fit right under the piano, but my little fingers wanted to do what she had done. So I got right in the middle, and I started picking out tunes. And of course, what was the one I picked out? The one I heard, Jesus Loves Me. So I thought, well, this is really cool. I've got something I can, relate to here. So went to bed that night, a little calmer. Next morning, came down, and who do you think? What made you think served me breakfast? You'll never guess. It was my mother. Yeah. She was in the maid's outfit, and I jumped off my chair, Mama, Mama, and put my arms up for her to pick me up, because we never had a goodbye, really. And she brushed me aside. I'm working. So I thought, well, when she's done working, she'll pick me up. I begged her to pick me up, wrap my little arms around her legs. She wouldn't. So I couldn't understand it, but I figured it was a rule or something, She worked there. So the next morning, she was there. And I thought, this is cool, man, this is cool. She must have my little brother around somewhere. But that was her last day there. And then, watch what you say, even what you whisper in front of little children. They hear more than you think they hear. I learned that throughout my childhood. But I heard these people, the servants, were in and out and moving furniture, and I was never really comfortable, but I heard I was going to have to move. They were too old to take care of me. He was a big shot in the railroad at the time. And I was supposed to go to their daughters. I thought, well, this is cool. I already know her. She plays the piano. Well, back then, whether they could play the piano or not, everybody had a piano. See, how many of you grew up with a, whoo, yeah, somewhere in your life. I know you girls do. So, yeah. So, I went to Wanda's, was her name. Jack had a job. Well, in Michigan, we call it Edison. Here they call it AEP. And Rhonda just stayed at home. So she'd take me to Birmingham shopping. That's where the Fords live. And I was just a little doll, really, for her. But I always had nice clothes. And so one day we made cookies, cleaned up the kitchen, and then we were going to have a tea party. So we sat on the carpet. We're just having our tea party when her husband came in. Now these are Christians, but sometimes even Christians, when unexpected things happen, they act up. Jack came through the door, started opening the mail, and he had noticed that he had to go to the military immediately, the Navy. And he came over and he kicked that tray. I was terrified, gave me flashbacks again, you know. Kicked that tray, everything went all over the place. And Wanda said, I can't raise Janie by herself. Then my name was Loretta Jane. So I'm going to have to get a job. We're going to have to send her somewhere else. But by now I had a really cool suitcase. I got it when I left Slater's. I mean, it was nice. Each place seemed to try to outdo the other. So that's why I named my book, Oh No, Not Another Suitcase. By now, we're down to the third. So I got a new suitcase, and the only buddy left to take me in a hurry was Cal, the guy with the yellow car. I thought, this is cool. I know him, you know. Well, his wife didn't think it was so cool, but I got to stay, and she had been in a car accident, so she was injured and couldn't have any children, but she wanted a baby. She didn't want a 6-year-old. So, next thing I knew, they were going to adopt a little baby boy. And I thought, oh good, this will be a fill-in for my brother. In the meantime, they had a little puppy, a little blonde cocker spaniel that had 3 puppies. And I'd go and sit on the garage floor with these puppies, and I just like to hold them, you know. So one day, somebody came to get one of the puppies. I didn't understand. So then somebody came to get the second puppy. And I started hugging the dog by the neck. Nothing worse than a dog that looks at you that's got sad eyes. I'll tell you, I can't handle it to this day. But finally, the third puppy was gone. And this mother whimpered, and those big sad eyes. And I grabbed her around the neck, and I said, they're giving your puppies away just like they gave me away. I related to that. I went running in the house. And, well, that's how they do it when they have puppies. It was the explanation. We can't keep all those puppies. So it was a couple days later, they brought little Jack home. And I was just thrilled. I got to try to hold him and dress him. Well, we all went to the same church, which I found interesting. It was a little basement church, and everybody was there on Sunday. I thought, this is great. I haven't lost my family after all. Everybody was there. Once in a while, Grandma Kirchhoff would come with her little sparklings on, you know. Always a sweet, sweet lady. And so, Angie was her name that adopted the little guy. And pretty soon, she didn't want me. That's all she could do to take care of the baby. Well, I don't know. I think I have it figured out, but there was a reason the cat was always in the picture with the yellow Cadillac. I'd hardly wait till he would get home. He came up on a big motorcycle one day and he says, "Come here." And I went over and he set me up on it. Well, my legs were short and I hit one of those pipes. It burned my leg, but I have flashbacks of my mother burning me with cigarettes. See, that was the grand finale for me leaving initially. My mom, my dad said, "We can't have this." So I still doctor my arms, and the big spot on my tummy's gone. It was about the size of a saucer. She just ground the cigarettes in. She might have been drunk at the time, I don't know. Maybe jealous, I don't know. But anyhow, so Cal's, I later found out, Cal's mother had been big in real estate. And guess what? Where do you suppose Cal got his start growing up? Real estate and politics. Remember Adrian, Michigan, where my mother was in reform school before she became my mother? So she had a lot of pull in Pontiac. And she said to Cal, "I will take Janie and I will raise her." Then it was Loretta. "And I will raise her. You don't have to worry." Well, it almost caused a divorce, I guess. And I thought that was sort of odd. But from there, I had to leave there with a real nice suitcase. I mean to tell you, I had arrived. So I went to this older couple's place. They were from the church. They had a daughter. I was still 6. They had a daughter that was 12 years older than myself. It was a natural daughter. And she was going away to college as I was coming in. So she went to Northwestern Bible School. And that's where she met her husband. But in the meantime, here I was. Well, they had a piano too. And I just go up. Well, back then you were able to keep a child up to a year, even. Especially I was being passed around, you know. So the year wasn't quite up. I hear the knock on the front door. My mother went and opened the door, and it was my father. He said, "I found out that I can take care of Loretta." He said, "I've got a lady that's going to watch her days and I'll take care of her at night. So my folks didn't have a choice, but I had gotten a little testament, little white testament with gold around the edges, and it said Loretta on it. So my mother packed a little suitcase in a hurry and put that little testament with my name on it right on the top. And she said, now, read it every day. I was there about a month, and do you know, I have a good memory. I have no recollection of that woman. I don't know. I've completely blocked it out. But the day came when evidently she was getting her money, but she wasn't taking care of me. So my dad didn't have a choice. Put me on the train up in Ionia, Michigan, all by myself. I'd never been on a train. They looked weird to me. This man helped me on. He said, you can sit wherever you want. I couldn't imagine. So I just picked a spot, waited for other people to get on. Nobody else got on. Well, when you get frightened, what do you have to do? You gotta go potty. I looked around. There wasn't a potty to be seen. So, you know what I did? I just wet myself, thrown up in the seat, and my dad had said, there'll be somebody to meet you when you get to Pontiac. So I didn't have a choice, you know. I once again escaped by falling asleep, and I knew to pray. Just ask Jesus to help me. Simple, you know. But we got there, they woke me up, I got off in my snowsuit and my wetness, and here was the people that had wanted to adopt me, Earl and Florence Fulcher. And he was right there. When I got off the train, so I didn't have to be afraid. See how God had put all these people around me. So I went back, and my mother used to have missionary meetings at her house. I was thrilled to death. The ladies would come. They'd always bring good food, but they always made their own dresses. And to me, that was so cool. And Dad would set up the, what we call card tables in the living room, 4 or 5 of them, and they'd start coming in. And they always had a time of devotions, so I'd sit through it, listen to it. It was always about Jesus. So one day, after they left, I said to my mother, I need to talk to you when we get cleaned up. Okay, honey, she said, that'll be fine. So we got cleaned up, card tables put away, and she said, let's sit down. What do you want to talk to me about? I was pretty quiet, but when I did say something, I was sort of a deep thinker, you know. So she never knew what I was going to say. So I said, I want to ask Jesus in my heart. It was wonderful. So I accepted the Lord. Same year I was adopted, they went ahead, did the paperwork to adopt me. Well, they didn't like the name Loretta Jane, so they completely changed my name at age 7, and the new birth certificate said Jane And so this is how it was made out. I didn't have my original at the time, so I didn't know. Later, when my mother died, she said to my brother, if you ever find Loretta, make sure you give her this family Bible. Inside, I could tell it had never been used, but inside the cover was the original birth certificate. Now, I was 7 years old, and they issued this new birth certificate, and it said, parents unknown. Well, that upset me. At 7, I sure did know my mother and my father, but I thought, oh, let it go, let it go. So, we were all going to this church in the neighborhood when Cal had to give me up. And his family, he said, I can't go to that church anymore. I can't stand, to see her. So right about that time, I was taught, if someone else can do it, you can do it. That was a philosophy that my folks had that adopted me. So, down in the basement church, all these people were giving testimonies. I thought, I could be like the rest of them. And my chin came to the top of the folding chair. Metal folding chair. So I popped up and I said, he saves, he keeps, and he satisfies. And I went and sat back down, knowing I had done what I was supposed to do. Well, we went down to the big Baptist church in Pontiac while our church was getting that nice auditorium. And there, I was just singing my heart out. I didn't know any different. But they had a little box they'd stand me on. There's a ghost star shining in the window for a loved one far away. No, that's what I was taught. It had to do with the soldiers. So, pretty soon, that little box went down in the baptistry, and I was baptized at age 8. So, Dr. Henry Savage, some of you have heard of him. He was the preacher, and he didn't think anything. If people were talking, he'd stop right in the middle of his message. You up there, you need to hear this. I thought, oh my goodness, that takes a lot of nerve, But it was a discipline of everybody around me. I learned when I was told to do something, not because I said so, And I never raised my daughter, ever said that to her. We never said that to her. Just certain things, well, I know best. No, you explain. That wouldn't make Jesus real happy. So, anyway, after the service, my little box was still standing there from me singing, and Pastor Savage came down, picks me up, and he said, see that thing up in the corner? I said, yeah. He says, I'm going to take you up there. I didn't know what it was, but it had all these keys on it. He set me on the bench. My little legs stuck straight out. I was still pretty tiny. He says, I'll bet you can play that. Well, I'll bet I could, So, of course, what did I play? Jesus loves me. Yeah, I had this down by now. So I had no idea. That also was an introduction, see. I don't know if these people all knew what they were doing at the time, but later it proved to be quite good. So I was adopted, like I say. Initially we went back to the auditorium. It was nice. And they had a piano and they had a little organ. Well, I was playing everything at home, so they said, Janie, we need somebody to play. We have someone that knows how to play the piano. Do you think you could play? Oh, I said, I don't know. At about age 11, my folks decided we ought to get her the best organ teacher in town. So my dad took me for my first organ lesson. The lady was pretty chubby, but she never got out of her chair. 2 big cats. Now, we've heard of kitten on the keys, but these were big cats. And they were allowed to just do their thing. I thought, well, this is odd. But I noticed that the pedals on the floor were laid out just like a keyboard. That sort of interested me. So, of course, at the big church downtown, I saw that, but I didn't know what it was. So, anyway, I thought, well, this must be whatever. Second week I went, it was the same thing. Cats were allowed just to drive all over the place. And I said, very respectfully, I said, do your cats, are they always included? Oh, yes, they love music. So I went down in the car, we started away. I said, Dad, I'm not going to have you wasting your money anymore. He said, what do you mean? Did you have words with her? I said, no. So I told him about her cats. I said, I can learn this on my own. So, by 12, I had it done. And the touch is totally different on an organ, Darlene, you know, than it is on a piano. Totally different. So I learned how to connect everything. And I was playing for weddings like crazy. If you were lucky, you could get the top photographer in town. His name was Mr. Haskell. And he really took to me, interested, and every wedding I played for, there were always pictures. And I was getting paid. I don't know when it was decided about me going to college. It was never talked about. It was never talked about. But I was, from junior high on, I was on a college prep course. So, right about that time, we lost our choir director. There were about 20 people in the choir. My dad said, you know what you've been taught? I'm awful tiny to lead this choir. But I looked it up in books, how to conduct timing and all that, you know. And I'd go to choir practice, and we maintained, but I'd sing each part, bass, tenor, alto, soprano. Yeah, but we had a growing thing for quite a while. I was in junior high at the time, and you had to take some kind of a language. I thought, I'll take Latin. What do I know? You don't have to speak it anyway. It's considered a dead language. So I took Latin. The main reason I took it, the Latin teacher was gorgeous. She was from Italy, and she really had her act together. So I aced it in Latin. I thought, when am I going to use this? Little did I know, down the road in law, what's the law based on? Latin. Unspoken language, but a lot of languages, a lot of things are based on the Latin language. So anyway, I went on to junior high. 12 was really a good year for me. Everything, I gave my own piano recital, and I'll just pass this around to some of the musicians that would like to see. It was all classical by memory, because I went to my lesson at 8, and I always wanted those gold stars. 3 of them he got, if the song was perfect. So my song was perfect. She said, Janie, you don't get the gold stars today. I said, Miss Fiedler, that song was perfect. I know it was. She said, honey, you looked right at the notes. If you look at the notes again and play the key that it's in, I'll give you 2 gold stars. That's when they understood that I could transpose. So she worked with me on that. But when I gave my piano recital, you can pass it around, I asked if I could request 2 of my arrangements. She allowed me 1. She was a Methodist. She allowed me 1, and it was never alone. No, never alone. And I tried to impress twin boys at age 12, what they could do, what I had done. And I showed them this. You know what their comment was? I think I told Shin. It wasn't about the recital. It was, we never saw paper that color. I said, of course you didn't. That's been how many years ago? But I did copy it. It's in the draft of my book. But anyway, I went on. Age 12 was a good year for me. Everything seemed to pop. I was playing the organ at the Rolladium roller rink. It sat up, and I could see everybody, and it was always church groups, you know, that would come, and they came. And, I just bounce, you know, and I'd go home and I was skating in my sleep all night. It was pretty bad. But anyway, in junior high, I took a class, extemporaneous speaking. I don't know. It was a speech class. I don't know why I took it. It was just down there for me to take. And most of our grade, we had to speak right off the top to any subjects he gave us. Well, he gave me, I don't remember the subjects he gave me, but I remember my mother had made me a new skirt. I had a blouse on. Always saddle shoes. How many wore saddle shoes? Oh, of course we did. And little lace stockings. I went up, composed myself, barely into the speech when my pearl necklace broke. Down the front of my blouse, all the way around the floor. I kept right on it going. So I got done. He said, I give you an A for your speech, but he says, I give you a double A for your composure. See, I was learning from recitals, and certain times you act up and certain times you don't. My dad said there's a time and place for everything. So when I wanted to be silly, I was. But I also was editor of the newspaper. I sang everything for assemblies. But assemblies and most of the dealings at school were always on Wednesday night. That was prayer meeting night. My folks would drop me off. They would never stay. They would go to prayer meeting. Consistency in the life of my parents really has dwelt with me forever. I never heard a fighting word out of their mouth. Now, they might have done it in private, but nothing did I ever hear of them fighting or arguing or anything like that. No, never. So anyway, first day of junior high, I went home crying. My dad says, come here. Set me on his lap. He said, what happened? I said, I got lost and worse yet, I was the tiniest one in the whole school. I wish I was. And it was only 2 levels, but I got lost. And he said, always want you to remember something, good things come in small packages. Well, that was enough for me. I had his approval. So I went on to high school, and about at age 15, my folks got a call one day from Mr. Haskell that owned the studio. Now this was my picture when I was in high school. But he asked my folks, would you let Janie do photographic modeling for me? I'll pay her well, every dime I could make is going in my college funds, So I said, photographic, that means studio. Yeah, no runway, no anything like that. Photographic. So my folks said, yeah, that would be all right. And the pictures, Haskell Studio, the pictures were all over town, which helped me. And that same time, a lady that went to the Big Baptist Church called my folks, and she said, I work at the music store downtown. Do you think maybe Janie would like to come work at the music store? Well, she might. Well, ask her. So I went to work at Grinnell's music store. Now, you remember the 45, you girls don't, for the 45 albums, then the 78, and then the 33. Well, I never did buy a piece of sheet music, but we used to have booths, 3 of them, where you could take the record, go in, play it, see if you liked it, then come up and buy it. So, I hear all this music. I thought, that's pretty cool. I'd go home and play it. So, the name of the studio is on the bottom there. So, they were letting me, in high school, go and play at 2 big funeral homes, the organ, and then I was allowed to go and play for the men's Rotary Club. Oh, I thought, those old duffers, but I went, and then I come back and I sort of snickered to myself, you know. Do you know, I played for the men's Rotary Club in Lima about a year ago to fill in for somebody, and they were still singing the same old song. I thought, boy, things come full circle, I'll tell you. But anyway, the first funeral I ever played, the funeral director said, now, we don't know. We might have you and the preacher and nobody. I thought, sure. He's telling me that so I don't get nervous, you know. Well, guess what? I didn't know the guy. My cousin had been a mortician, so I was used to, you know, those kind of things. But I waited. Nobody showed. It was the preacher and myself. It was true what I had been warned, and that has always impressed me. Always impressed me. Later I found out that the funeral director bought the suit that the guy was laid away and paid for the funeral. But I didn't know it. But I was getting paid good money. One was close to the high school, but the other one was downtown. So, right about then, I was playing piano for the Glee Club. Piano and organ, nobody could play the organ. So, I got jumped on because at work, I was with Hammond organs. I think this was a Baldwin. So, my boss said at Grinnell's one day, Janie, we're doing a promotional. I was 16. And I said, what's it going to be? We're going to sell piano and organs, trying to promote the organ. And we have someone that's going to come and teach it. I said, oh, I thought, hope it's not my organ teacher, you know, with the cats. But I said, who's it going to be? She says, you. I said, I'm a new kid on the block here. No, he says, you give 6 free lessons if they buy a Hammond organ. So I knew nobody was going to buy. Well, they did. So I was giving lessons. So I started giving lessons at home. It was college money, always college money. But whenever I get paid for anything, I learned you give 1/10 of that before anything else to the Lord. That's how I was raised. So I'd always give to church on Sunday, and then the rest, whatever I wanted to do. Later, when I got in high school, I would give my folks $10 a week to put aside for me. Well, came time for me to graduate. I knew I was going to college. I got a full ride scholarship, 4-year scholarship at Michigan State. Everything paid for. I thought, this is pretty cool. I said, Mom and Dad, I went home all excited. They weren't excited. We really need to pray about this because we wanted you to go at least 2 years to a Christian school. You almost had your foundation, but not quite. So I thought, they've done so much for me. Yeah, it's for my best. I'll get it eventually. So I gave up the scholarship. Then I had cousins in the family. This one cousin, my mother's side, was a teacher with her husband at Bob Jones University. I said, oh, Dad, I've done everything you've ever asked me to do, haven't I? Giving up that scholarship. I said, please, please, don't make me go to Bob Jones. Well, I had heard, my goodness, I had a boyfriend. I had heard that you couldn't even hold hands. You couldn't even go on a date without somebody else along. So we started looking around. Well, I wasn't allowed, going back a little bit, I wasn't allowed to date until I was 16. That's the rules, no questioning. So every morning, I carried my Bible. First door inside the school was our Youth for Christ room, and I played the piano, and this one kid sat there. I thought he was pretty cool, you know. Well, as it happened, he's the one I dated. He was there for me when my brothers came at age 16. Notice I said brothers. By then they'd had a couple more and wanted me to, Mom wants to set up a meeting. She wants to meet you. Right about my boyfriend started off. He was there to support me, but not to get involved. Yes, he had to. He thought he was a mighty mouse, you know. So, right about that time, I saw my dad drop Mom off, and he pulled around in the back door of the church. I know he knew who it was. I said, you know, I'd love to see my mother again. But I said, these folks have been so good to me that I will not see her. Maybe later on, it was meant to be, but not now. So I was very sad. I went into young people's meeting and that kind of thing, but I was very sad. So, to finish the story, Oh no, not another suitcase. That's the name of the draft of my book. Well, for graduation, the week before I was to graduate, I wanted a job. I was a January graduate, last one in Michigan that had that. I wanted to get a job. Oh, my dad says, why don't you go up to General Motors? General Moters? Oh no, that's too much for me. Well, in typing, I typed 362 words a minute. And my dad said, with that typing, you ought to be able to do that. So he said, go to the salary side, or to the hourly side, not the salary. So I went up there. Didn't know any better. I wasn't frightened because I knew I wasn't going to get it anyway. Well, there was a man from the church. He didn't interview me, but I later found out he knew me. I got the job. They called me when I got home. I said, oh, I can't start work tomorrow. I don't graduate until Thursday. You're good to go, Miss Jane? We've already called your principal. So I started, that was on a Monday. I started on a Tuesday, hourly. And I was really putting with the books. We worked a lot Saturdays. And I was in, it was a factory, but it was one of the offices. I knew everybody. I'd ride around with the guy in the scooter through the factory, so I know what was going on, you know. Well, came time to pick a college. My boyfriend was going to Taylor University in Upland, Indiana. So I said, Daddy, I sent in my qualifications for Taylor University. Well, that's a Methodist school, but it is a fundamental Methodist school. So I got a set, gorgeous set, of Samsonite luggage. How? Oh, come on, you remember Samsonite luggage? Heavy. Oh my. But I got a 3-piece set. The day they took me to Taylor University, I had gone through all of these suitcases, and I told my mom goodbye at the bottom of the hill, and the hill went up. This out front reminds me of that. Maybe that one was a little steeper, but right up to the main entrance, my dad walked me up there, put my luggage down, walked back down the hill, and I went to go through the doors. I looked at the bottom of the hill. It's gone full trip. I've gone through all these suitcases to get me where I'm supposed to be. Sure enough, I looked at the bottom of the hill. There was my dad, standing there crying. He'd done his job. He and Mom, had done their job. Consistent, consistent, consistent. That's how I tried to be with my grandchildren. Consistent. With my daughter, we were consistent. That's how, oh no, not another suitcase. Everyone was bigger and better. The last one was the heaviest, I'm going to say. But some of you asked.
We'll have you come back and do another.
Some of you asked, did I ever see my mom? No. Never did see her. The last year, I was sitting playing the organ at church. You get so you know everybody. You know where they sit. This lady would come in, sit at the back row, and leave on the last song. This happened 4 Sunday nights in a row. Well, once I looked right at her. Our eyes connected, and I knew it was my mother. But never, did I see her again. That was the end of it. My life went on, so I never saw her, never saw my dad. A lot of you want to know about my brothers. I did get with my brother after 40 years of separation. The Lord works all that out too. I didn't have anything to do with it, but what about, I did marry that guy that I met in Bible club. Yeah, I married him. Our first date, before I was 16, my folks let on like, where does he want to take you? My dad says, he thought we'd go down to the tent meetings in Detroit, Billy Graham. Well, it is only a week. So that was my first date, and I knew they had discouraged other guys that went to church. One was a Nazarene. What does he want to take you to a Halloween party? I don't know about that. Probably not a good idea. So they were very guarded in what they let me do. But I did marry him, 23 wonderful years, and he died with, at 44 with leukemia. I said, nowadays, they probably would be able to cure it. But back then, 40-some years ago, 45, there was no cure. So that answers the questions. I'm writing the rest of my life, the rest of the story. I'm in about half through. But that's all for today. But you know where I come from.
Wow. You have an interesting life, Jane. Thank
Yeah.
you.